In the remote mountains of Afghanistan, where silence can mean survival and a single radio transmission can alter the course of history, communications specialist Marcus Rivera thought he was simply fixing another broken satellite link. The year was 2019, and after 3 grueling days without contact with command, his unit desperately needed to restore their lifeline to the outside world. But when that crackling voice emerged from the static at 0347 hours, speaking with an authority that seemed to cut through the very fabric of military protocol, Marcus realized he hadn't just reconnected with headquarters. He had stumbled upon something far more significant, a classified operation that would test everything he believed about loyalty, duty, and the true cost of modern warfare. What followed would transform a routine maintenance mission into a heart-stopping journey through the shadowy world of military black operations, where the line between ally and enemy blurs like desert mirages, and where a mysterious figure known only as Steel Ghost would prove that sometimes the most dangerous battles are fought not with bullets, but with secrets that could topple governments. This is the true account of those 72 hours that changed Marcus Rivera's life forever, and revealed a truth about modern military operations that few are meant to survive knowing. The scorching Afghan sun had barely begun its descent behind the jagged peaks when Staff Sergeant Marcus Rivera finally heard the familiar hum of the satellite dish coming to life. For 3 days, his 12-man reconnaissance unit had been operating in complete radio silence, cut off from their forward operating base by what appeared to be a catastrophic equipment failure. In the unforgiving terrain of Helmand Province, being without communication was like being deaf and blind simultaneously, a vulnerability that could prove fatal in hostile territory. Marcus wiped the sweat from his brow as he made the final adjustments to the communication array. The 28-year-old specialist from El Paso had joined the Army 6 years earlier, driven by a combination of patriotic duty and a genuine fascination with advanced military technology. His expertise in satellite communications and electronic warfare had made him invaluable to special operations units, and this particular mission, officially classified as a routine surveillance operation, had seemed straightforward enough when they'd inserted into the valley 72 hours ago. The unit commander, Captain James Holloway, approached the communication station with obvious relief etched across his weathered face. At 35, Holloway was a career soldier who had served multiple deployments across the Middle East. His men respected him for his calm decision-making under pressure and his unwavering commitment to bringing every soldier home safely. "About damn time, Rivera," Holloway said, though his tone carried more gratitude than criticism. "I was starting to think we'd have to walk back to base." Marcus nodded, running through the final system checks. The other members of their unit, a carefully selected mix of infantry soldiers, intelligence specialists, and support personnel, had been maintaining a defensive perimeter around their temporary position. Each man understood that their isolation had made them increasingly vulnerable with each passing hour. "Signal strength is good, Captain," Marcus reported, adjusting his headset. "Should have clear comms with Falcon Base in about 30 seconds. But when Marcus activated the primary communication channel, instead of the familiar voice of their base communications officer, a different sound emerged from the speakers. The voice was calm, measured, and carried an authority that seemed to transcend normal military hierarchy. "Steel Ghost in charge." The 4 words hung in the desert air like a physical presence. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine despite the oppressive heat. He looked at Captain Holloway, whose expression had shifted from relief to confused concern. "Say again, unknown station." Marcus transmitted back, following standard protocol for unidentified communications. The response came immediately, without hesitation. "Communications check complete. Steel Ghost acknowledges receipt of priority traffic. Stand by for operational update." Captain Holloway grabbed the handset for Marcus, his training kicking in. As a unit commander, Any operational updates should flow through him directly. Unknown station, this is Reaper 6. Identify yourself immediately. A pause stretched across the airwaves. Not the pause of someone caught off guard, but the deliberate silence of someone choosing their words carefully. When the voice returned, it carried a subtle edge that suggested the speaker was accustomed to being obeyed without question. Reaper 6, your current mission parameters have been modified. Maintain current position and await further instructions. Steel Ghost has operational authority for your unit effective immediately. Holloway's jaw tightened. In his 6 years of military service, he had never encountered a situation where an unknown entity claimed command authority over his unit. Military communications followed strict protocols with clear chains of command and proper authentication procedures. This deviation from standard operating procedures set off every alarm bell in his mind. Negative, unknown station. I require proper authentication codes and written orders before acknowledging any command authority changes. Holloway responded firmly. Marcus watched as beads of perspiration formed on the captain's forehead. The other soldiers had begun to gather around the communication station, sensing the tension in their commander's voice. Sergeant First Class Williams, the unit's senior non-commissioned officer, positioned himself where he could observe both the radio equipment and the surrounding terrain. The voice that came back over the radio was noticeably cooler. Captain Holloway, your service record indicates you graduated from West Point in 2008, served 2 deployments in Iraq, and received the Bronze Star for actions during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Your wife, Sarah, teaches elementary school in Fort Carson, Colorado, and your daughter, Emma, just turned 7 last month. The color drained from Holloway's face. The level of detailed, personal information being transmitted over an unsecured channel violated numerous security protocols, but more importantly, it demonstrated that whoever was speaking had access to highly classified personnel records. Marcus felt his mouth go dry. He had been monitoring military communications for years, but he had never encountered anything like this. The casual display of intimate knowledge about their commander's family suggested resources and access that extended far beyond normal military operations. Your point is noted, Holloway replied carefully, his voice steady despite the obvious stress. However, I still require proper authentication before. Authentication Alpha 77 to Charlie. The voice interrupted smoothly. Cross-reference with your mission orders. Section 12, Subsection 4. Marcus watched as Holloway pulled out a sealed envelope that had been given to him during their mission briefing 3 days earlier. The envelope was marked with specific instructions to open only in case of emergency or upon receiving particular authentication codes. With shaking hands, the captain broke the seal and extracted a single sheet of classified documentation. As Holloway scanned the contents, his expression transformed from suspicion to shock, then to something approaching fear. The document apparently contained information that validated the authority claimed by the mysterious Steel Ghost. Orders acknowledged. Holloway said quietly into the radio. What are our instructions? Maintain current defensive positions. Monitor all radio traffic on designated frequencies. Report any unusual activity in your operational area immediately. Further instructions will follow within 6 hours. The radio fell silent, leaving the unit members looking at each other with a mixture of confusion and apprehension. Marcus began running diagnostics on his equipment, trying to trace the source of the transmission, but his efforts yielded no useful information. The signal had been routed through multiple relay stations and encrypted channels that were beyond his ability to track. Private Johnson, the youngest member of their unit at 19 years old, broke the tense silence. Captain, what the hell just happened? Holloway folded the classified document and returned it to its envelope, his movements deliberate and controlled. What happened, Johnson, is that our mission just became significantly more complicated. Marcus continued monitoring the radio frequencies, searching for any additional transmissions from Steel Ghost or their home base. The electronic silence was almost complete, broken only by routine military communications from other units operating in distant sectors of the country. Sergeant Williams approached the captain with obvious concern. "Sir, should we attempt to contact Falcon Base directly? Confirm these new orders through normal channels?" Holloway considered the suggestion, then shook his head slowly. "The orders specifically state that we're to maintain radio silence, except for emergency communications or direct contact from Steel Ghost. Until we understand what we're dealing with, we follow the orders as given." As evening settled over the mountains, Marcus found himself unable to shake the feeling that their routine surveillance mission had suddenly become something far more dangerous. The casual way Steel Ghost had demonstrated knowledge of their commander's personal life suggested surveillance capabilities and intelligence resources that operated outside normal military structures. The unit established watch rotations and settled into a defensive posture, but sleep proved elusive for most of the soldiers. Marcus spent his time monitoring radio frequencies and analyzing the communication equipment, searching for any clues about Steel Ghost's identity or location. Around midnight, Marcus detected unusual electronic activity on several classified military frequencies. The signals were fragmented and heavily encrypted, but their pattern suggested coordinated military operations involving multiple units across different sectors of Afghanistan. The scale and coordination of the activity implied a significant operation was underway, something much larger than their small reconnaissance mission. When Marcus reported his observations to Captain Holloway, the commander's expression grew increasingly grim. The classified document had apparently contained information about potential larger operations, but Holloway remained tight-lipped about the specific details. "Keep monitoring, Rivera," Holloway instructed. "Document everything you detect, but maintain radio silence unless directly contacted by Steel Ghost." The next morning brought an unexpected development. Corporal Stevens, who had been monitoring the perimeter with night vision equipment, reported unusual movement in the valley below their position. Through binoculars, the unit observed what appeared to be a convoy of unmarked vehicles traveling along a route that intelligence reports had indicated was abandoned. When Marcus attempted to report this observation to Steel Ghost using their designated communication channel, the response was immediate and authoritative. Observation noted. Do not engage. Do not investigate. Maintain current position and continue surveillance. The convoy disappeared into the mountainous terrain, leaving the unit with more questions than answers. Marcus realized that their position had been chosen not randomly, but specifically to observe this particular route. Their surveillance mission was apparently connected to whatever Operation Steel Ghost was coordinating. Throughout the day, additional radio traffic revealed glimpses of a complex military operation involving special forces units, intelligence assets, and resources that extended far beyond conventional military structures. Marcus began to understand that they had become part of something that operated in the shadows of official military operations, a world where normal rules and procedures gave way to objectives and methods that remained hidden from standard military personnel. The knowledge that they were now operating under the authority of an entity that existed outside normal military command structures filled Marcus with both fascination and deep unease. He had joined the military believing in clear chains of command, transparent objectives, and honorable service to his country. The mysterious Steel Ghost represented something entirely different. Power that operated without oversight, authority that needed no justification, and objectives that remained hidden even from those carrying out the mission. As the second day of their modified mission drew to a close, Marcus found himself questioning everything he thought he knew about military service and the true nature of the conflicts in which he had been participating. The voice on the radio had opened a door into a world he had never suspected existed, a world where the real decisions were made by people whose names never appeared on official documents, and whose actions remained forever hidden from public scrutiny. The transformation from routine communications specialist to participant in a classified operation that operated outside normal military structures left Marcus feeling isolated and vulnerable. He realized that knowledge of Steel Ghost's existence made him a security risk, someone who had glimpsed behind the curtain of official military operations and seen the machinery that really controlled events. That night, as Marcus maintained his communication watch under the star-filled Afghan sky, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had been permanently altered by 4 simple words transmitted over a military radio. The voice of Steel Ghost had not just changed their mission. It had revealed the existence of a parallel military structure that operated according to rules and objectives that remained hidden from ordinary soldiers. The weight of this knowledge settled over Marcus like a heavy blanket, and he began to understand that some doors, once opened, could never be closed again. The third morning of their modified mission began with an encrypted transmission that would change everything Marcus thought he understood about their situation. At 0545 hours, while most of the unit was still sleeping, the radio crackled to life with Steel Ghost's unmistakable voice. Reaper 6, prepare for priority briefing. Classification level requires reduced personnel. Send your communications specialist and senior NCO to grid reference 41 S MB 4736-8942. Immediate departure required. Captain Holloway, awakened by the transmission, quickly consulted his maps. The grid reference indicated a location approximately 2 kilometers northeast of their current position, a rocky outcropping that would provide concealment while offering commanding views of the surrounding valleys. Marcus felt his stomach tighten as he realized he would be leaving the relative security of their defensive position. The prospect of meeting Steel Ghost face to face filled him with equal measures of apprehension and curiosity. For the past 48 hours, the mysterious voice had existed only as electronic impulses transmitted through his radio equipment. The thought of confronting the reality behind that voice seemed both inevitable and terrifying. Sergeant First Class Williams gathered his equipment with the methodical precision of a career soldier, but Marcus could see the tension in the older man's movements. Williams had served 3 combat deployments and had developed the survival instinct that kept experienced soldiers alive in dangerous situations. His obvious unease about the meeting only amplified Marcus's own anxiety. "Stay alert out there," Captain Holloway instructed as they prepared to depart. "If something feels wrong, abort the meeting and return immediately. Our unit integrity takes priority over any orders from Steel Ghost." The journey to the designated meeting point took them through terrain that provided excellent concealment, but also numerous opportunities for ambush. Marcus found himself constantly scanning the rocky landscape, searching for any signs of hostile activity or surveillance. The weight of his communications equipment and the M4 carbine across his chest seemed heavier than usual, and every shadow appeared to conceal potential threats. As they approached the specified grid coordinates, Williams signaled for Marcus to halt. Through hand gestures, the sergeant indicated that he had detected movement ahead. Using binoculars, Marcus could see a figure positioned among the rocks approximately 50 meters ahead, someone who had clearly been waiting for their arrival. The figure stood as they approached, revealing a tall man wearing standard military fatigues with no visible rank insignia or unit identification. He appeared to be in his early 40s, with the lean build and alert posture of someone accustomed to operating in hostile environments. His equipment was standard military issue, but Marcus noticed several pieces of advanced communication gear that he didn't recognize. "Sergeant Williams, Specialist Rivera," the man said, his voice matching the tone they had been hearing over the radio. "I'm the individual you know as Steel Ghost." Williams maintained his weapon at the ready, while keeping a respectful but cautious distance. "Sir, we're here as ordered. What are your instructions?" Steel Ghost studied both men carefully before responding, as if evaluating their reliability and discretion. "What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. Your knowledge of this information makes you integral to an operation that extends far beyond your current mission parameters." Marcus felt his mouth go dry. The implication that they were being drawn deeper into whatever clandestine operation Steel Ghost was coordinating filled him with dread. He had hoped that meeting face-to-face might provide clarity about their situation, but instead, he sensed they were about to cross another threshold from which there might be no return. "Your unit was positioned here not for routine surveillance, but because this location provides optimal monitoring of a trafficking route used by a network that poses significant threats to American interests," Steel Ghost continued. "The convoy you observed yesterday was carrying materials that could potentially be used in attacks against civilian targets in the United States." Williams shifted his position slightly, maintaining visual contact with the surrounding terrain while listening to Steel Ghost's briefing. "Sir, if that's accurate, shouldn't this intelligence be shared with conventional military units better equipped to handle interdiction operations?" Steel Ghost's expression darkened slightly. "Conventional military operations are compromised in this region. We have evidence suggesting that elements within standard military command structures are providing intelligence to hostile networks. This operation requires personnel who operate outside normal communication channels." The implication hit Marcus like a physical blow. Steel Ghost was suggesting that American military personnel were actively collaborating with enemy forces, a betrayal that challenged everything Marcus believed about military service and loyalty to country. The suggestion seemed impossible, yet Steel Ghost's access to classified information and command authority suggested his claims carried significant credibility. "Your role in this operation is critical," Steel Ghost continued. "Your communications expertise allows us to monitor enemy communications while maintaining operational security. The intelligence gathered through your equipment has already prevented 2 potential attacks against American personnel." Marcus realized that his routine monitoring of radio frequencies had been providing Steel Ghost with actionable intelligence about enemy operations. The electronic activity he had detected over the past few days had not been random military communications, but coordinated enemy planning that Steel Ghost was systematically disrupting. "What exactly are you asking us to do?" Williams asked directly. Steel Ghost produced a small electronic device that Marcus recognized as an advanced encryption module. "This device will allow secure communication with our operational network without using standard military channels. Your unit will continue surveillance operations while providing real-time intelligence about enemy movement and communications in this sector." Marcus examined the encryption device, noting its sophisticated design and the absence of any military identification markings. The equipment was clearly military-grade, but its lack of standard identifiers suggested it had been acquired through channels that operated outside normal military procurement procedures. "Sir, what happens to our unit when this operation concludes?" Williams asked. "Our men have families, careers, and commitments that extend beyond this mission." Steel Ghost's response was delivered with a calm certainty that somehow made it more unsettling. "Personnel who demonstrate reliability and discretion during classified operations often find enhanced career opportunities within specialized units. Those who prove less suitable for sensitive operations sometimes find their military careers redirected toward positions with reduced security clearances." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Cooperation with Steel Ghost's operation would be rewarded, while resistance or security breaches would result in career destruction. Marcus realized they were being offered a choice that wasn't really a choice at all. Participate willingly or face the consequences of refusing to cooperate with an operation that had the power to destroy their military futures. Williams accepted the encryption device, his expression revealing his understanding of their situation. What are our immediate instructions? Return to your unit and install this device in your communications array. Monitor all radio traffic using the embedded frequency list and report any significant intelligence immediately. A supply drop will occur at grid reference 41 SMB 4892-7735 at 2100 hours tonight. Retrieve the materials and await further instructions. The meeting concluded with Steel Ghost disappearing into the rocky terrain with the same silent efficiency he had demonstrated upon arrival. Marcus and Williams began the return journey to their unit. Both men lost in thought about the implications of what they had learned. During the return trip, Williams broke the tense silence. "Rivera, what's your assessment of our situation?" Marcus had been dreading this conversation, but he knew Williams deserved an honest evaluation. "Sergeant, I think we're in way over our heads. Steel Ghost has resources and authority that suggest he's connected to intelligence operations that operate outside normal military oversight. The equipment he provided is sophisticated enough to suggest significant funding and support." Williams nodded grimly. "My assessment matches yours. The question now is whether we're helping prevent attacks against Americans or whether we're being manipulated into participating in something that violates our oath of service." When they returned to their unit, Captain Holloway received their briefing with obvious concern. The encryption device and the instructions for the supply drop represented a significant escalation in their involvement with Steel Ghost's operation. The captain spent several minutes studying the device, clearly recognizing its sophisticated capabilities while noting its lack of standard military identification. "This puts us in a difficult position," Holloway admitted. "We're being drawn deeper into an operation that we don't fully understand, with an individual whose authority we can't verify through normal channels." Marcus installed the encryption device according to Steel Ghost's instructions, noting how seamlessly it integrated with their existing communication equipment. The frequency list embedded in the device provided access to communication channels that were clearly being used by hostile forces in the region. Within minutes of activation, Marcus was intercepting enemy communications that revealed planning for attacks against American personnel and Afghan civilians. The intelligence gathered through the device was undeniably valuable. Marcus could see how Steel Ghost's network was using this information to prevent attacks and protect American interests in the region. Yet the methods being used to gather this intelligence operated entirely outside normal military procedures and oversight. That evening, as directed, Marcus and two other soldiers traveled to the designated supply drop location. They found a cache containing advanced surveillance equipment, additional encryption devices, and supplies that would allow their unit to operate independently for several additional weeks. The sophistication and value of the materials reinforced the impression that Steel Ghost's operation was supported by significant resources and planning. Among the supplied materials, Marcus discovered communication equipment that would allow monitoring of cellular phone networks and internet communications throughout the region. The capability to intercept civilian communications raised serious legal and ethical questions about the nature of their mission, but it also provided access to intelligence that could prevent terrorist attacks. When Marcus reported his discoveries to Captain Holloway, the commander's expression revealed his internal conflict. The equipment provided capabilities that could save American lives, but using it would involve surveillance activities that violated privacy rights and potentially exceeded their legal authority as military personnel. "Sir, what are your orders regarding this equipment?" Marcus asked. Holloway studied the communication intercept devices for several minutes before responding. "Install the equipment and begin monitoring as directed. Document everything we discover, but maintain detailed records of all intelligence gathered. If we're going to participate in this operation, we're going to do it in a way that allows us to justify our actions when this is over." Over the following days, the intelligence gathered through Steel Ghost's equipment revealed the existence of a sophisticated terrorist network that was planning multiple attacks against American and coalition forces throughout Afghanistan. The intercepted communications provided detailed information about planned bombing locations, target preferences, and timing that allowed Steel Ghost's network to disrupt the attacks before they occurred. Marcus found himself torn between admiration for the effectiveness of Steel Ghost's operation and deep concern about the methods being employed. The results were undeniably positive. Lives were being saved and attacks prevented, but the operation's disregard for normal military procedures and legal oversight troubled him deeply. The moral complexity of their situation became even more apparent when intercepted communications revealed that several American military personnel were indeed providing intelligence to hostile networks. Steel Ghost's earlier claims about compromised military communications proved accurate, validating his decision to operate outside normal command structures. As Marcus monitored these communications, he began to understand the scope of the betrayal within American military ranks. The compromised personnel were providing detailed information about patrol routes, base security procedures, and planned operations that was being used to plan attacks against their fellow soldiers. The discovery of this betrayal forced Marcus to confront the possibility that Steel Ghost's unconventional methods might be the only effective way to counter threats that had infiltrated normal military operations. Yet accepting this logic meant acknowledging that the military system he had trusted and served might be fundamentally compromised. By the end of their first week under Steel Ghost's command, Marcus realized that he and his unit had become integral to an operation that existed in the shadows of official military activity. They were participants in a parallel war fought with methods and objectives that remained hidden from public scrutiny and military oversight. The knowledge that they possessed about Steel Ghost's operation and the compromised military personnel made them valuable assets, but it also made them potential targets for elimination if they ever attempted to expose what they had learned. Marcus understood that his life had been permanently altered by his encounter with Steel Ghost, and that the consequences of this knowledge would extend far beyond the conclusion of their current mission. The morning of their 10th day under Steel Ghost's command brought news that would test every principle Marcus held about duty, loyalty, and moral responsibility. At 0630 hours, intercepted communications revealed that a major attack was planned against Forward Operating Base Falcon, the same base that housed their original unit and hundreds of American personnel who had no knowledge of the compromised intelligence network. Marcus stared at the translated intercepts, his hands trembling as he read the detailed attack plans. The hostile forces had obtained precise information about base security protocols, guard rotation schedules, and the exact locations of ammunition storage facilities. The planned assault would occur during the change of shift when base defenses would be temporarily reduced, and the attackers knew exactly which entry points would be most vulnerable. "Captain, you need to see this immediately," Marcus called to Holloway, who was reviewing intelligence reports from the previous night's surveillance. As Holloway read the intercepted communications, his face drained of color. The attack was scheduled for 2,100 hours that evening, less than 15 hours away. The detailed intelligence available to the attacking forces suggested that someone with high-level access to base security procedures had provided comprehensive information to the enemy. "Get Steel Ghost on the radio immediately," Holloway ordered. Marcus activated the secure communication channel, but for the first time since they had been under Steel Ghost's command, there was no immediate response. Repeated attempts to establish contact over the next hour yielded only electronic silence, leaving the unit with critical intelligence about an imminent attack and no way to warn the intended targets through official channels. Sergeant Williams approached the communication station with obvious frustration. "Sir, we can't just sit here with knowledge of an attack against our own people. If Steel Ghost isn't responding, we need to contact Falcon Base directly." Holloway considered the suggestion, weighing the potential consequences of breaking their operational security against the moral imperative to prevent the attack. The problem is that our intelligence indicates the base communications are compromised. If we transmit a warning through normal channels, we might be alerting the same people who provided the intelligence to the attacking forces. Marcus continued monitoring all available communication frequencies, searching for any sign of Steel Ghost or his operational network. The electronic silence was complete, as if the entire operation had simply vanished from the airwaves. The absence of communication left them isolated with intelligence that could save hundreds of lives if properly acted upon. Private Johnson, who had been monitoring the perimeter, reported unusual activity in the valley below their position. Through binoculars, the unit observed a convoy of vehicles moving toward the mountain passes that led to forward operating base Falcon. The convoy's route and timing suggested these were the same forces planning the evening attack. We have visual confirmation of hostile forces moving toward Falcon Base, Marcus reported to Holloway. Vehicle count suggests a force of at least 50 combatants, heavily armed and moving with obvious tactical purpose. The sight of enemy forces preparing to attack their fellow soldiers while they remained hidden in the mountains created an almost unbearable tension within the unit. Every man understood that their knowledge of the planned attack created a moral obligation to act, regardless of the consequences for their involvement with Steel Ghost's operation. At 1,400 hours, Marcus finally received a transmission on Steel Ghost's frequency, but the message was brief and cryptic. Operational priorities have changed. Maintain surveillance and document all activity. Do not compromise operational security. The instruction to maintain surveillance while American personnel faced imminent attack struck Marcus as a betrayal of everything he believed about military service. The suggestion that operational security took priority over the lives of fellow soldiers contradicted the fundamental principle that no soldier should be left behind or abandoned to face preventable death. Sir, I request permission to contact Falcon Base and provide warning about the attack, Marcus said to Captain Holloway. Holloway struggled with the decision for several minutes, clearly torn between loyalty to his men's safety and his responsibility to protect the soldiers at Falcon Base. If we break operational security, we compromise not only our own safety, but potentially the effectiveness of Steel Ghost's entire operation. Williams interjected with obvious anger. Sir, with all due respect, if Steel Ghost's operation considers American soldiers expendable, then maybe it's not worth protecting. The moral clarity of Williams' statement cut through the complex rationalization that had allowed them to participate in Steel Ghost's operation. Marcus realized that they had gradually accepted compromises and ethical flexibility that had led them to a point where they were considering allowing their fellow soldiers to die to protect an operation whose ultimate objectives remained hidden from them. Marcus made his decision. Captain, I'm going to contact Falcon Base and provide warning about the attack. I'll take full responsibility for the consequences. Before Holloway could respond, Marcus activated his radio equipment and transmitted on the emergency frequency used by Falcon Base. Falcon Base, this is an emergency transmission from Reaper 6-4. Priority intelligence indicates imminent attack on your position at approximately 2,100 hours tonight. The response was immediate and urgent. Unknown station. This is Falcon Base operations. Authenticate your transmission and provide detailed intelligence immediately. Marcus provided authentication code from his original mission orders and transmitted detailed information about the planned attack, including entry points, timing, and estimated force strength. The intelligence was received with obvious alarm, and Marcus could hear increased activity in the background as base personnel began implementing defensive preparations. Within minutes of his transmission, Steel Ghost's voice crackled through the secure communication channel with unmistakable anger. Reaper 6-4, you have compromised operational security and jeopardized ongoing intelligence operations. Explain your actions immediately. Marcus felt a surge of defiance that surprised him with its intensity. Steel Ghost, we had intelligence about an imminent attack against American personnel. We provided warning to prevent unnecessary casualties. If that compromises your operation, then your operation has the wrong priorities. The radio silence that followed suggested that Steel Ghost was either formulating a response or consulting with higher authorities about how to handle the unit's insubordination. During this silence, Marcus realized that he had crossed a line from which there might be no return. His decision to prioritize the lives of fellow soldiers over operational security had probably ended his involvement with Steel Ghost Network and potentially placed his unit in danger. Captain Holloway placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. You did the right thing, Rivera. Whatever happens next, you chose to protect American lives over protecting an operation we never fully understood. Throughout the afternoon, radio communications from Falcon Base revealed intensive preparation for the expected attack. Base security was increased, defensive positions were reinforced, and personnel were placed on high alert. The intelligence provided by Marcus was being used to prepare defensive measures that would significantly reduce the attacker's chances of success. At 1800 hours, Steel Ghost's voice returned to their communication channel with a tone that suggested he had reached some form of resolution about their situation. Reaper 6, your actions have indeed compromised ongoing intelligence operations, but they have also prevented significant American casualties. This creates a complex situation that requires careful management. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. Steel Ghost's acknowledgement that preventing casualties was important suggested that the operation retained some concern for American lives, but the reference to careful management implied that consequences would follow their decision to break operational security. Your unit will be extracted from current position at 0300 hours tomorrow. Prepare for immediate departure and ensure all equipment is secured for transport. Further instructions will be provided during extraction. The prospect of extraction filled Marcus with both relief and uncertainty. Leaving their mountain position would end their direct involvement with Steel Ghost's operation, but it also raised questions about what would happen to them once they were removed from the field. The knowledge they possessed about Steel Ghost's network and the compromised military personnel made them potential security risks that might require permanent management. That evening, as planned, hostile forces launched their attack against forward operating Base Falcon. However, the defensive preparations made possible by Marcus's intelligence transmission resulted in a decisive defeat for the attacking forces. The enemy assault was repelled with minimal American casualties, and several high-value enemy personnel were captured during the failed attack. Marcus monitored radio communications from the battle with a sense of vindication about his decision to provide warning. The intelligence he had transmitted had undoubtedly saved American lives and contributed to a significant tactical victory against hostile forces in the region. At 0300 hours as scheduled, helicopters arrived to extract the unit from their mountain position. Steel Ghost accompanied the extraction team, his presence confirming the importance of managing their transition away from the operation they had been supporting. During the flight to their destination, Steel Ghost provided a final briefing about their situation. Your service over the past 2 weeks has contributed to successful prevention of multiple attacks against American personnel and the disruption of a significant terrorist network operating in this region. However, your knowledge of classified operations requires careful handling. Marcus listened with growing apprehension as Steel Ghost outlined the restrictions that would govern their future military service. They would be reassigned to different units. Their security clearances would be modified to prevent access to certain types of intelligence, and they would be required to sign comprehensive non-disclosure agreements about their experiences with Steel Ghost's operation. The alternative to accepting these restrictions would be administrative discharge from military service with security classifications that would prevent future employment in sensitive positions, Steel Ghost explained. "I trust you understand the implications of these options." Marcus realized that Steel Ghost was offering them a choice between continued military service under restrictive conditions or civilian life with permanent limitations on their career opportunities. The knowledge they had gained about classified operations had made them permanent security risks who required ongoing management. When they arrived at their destination, a military facility that Marcus didn't recognize, they were separated for individual debriefings about their experiences with Steel Ghost's operation. Marcus spent hours answering questions about the intelligence they had gathered, the methods they had observed, and their understanding of the operation's objectives and effectiveness. The debriefing process revealed that Steel Ghost's network had successfully disrupted numerous planned attacks against American and coalition forces throughout Afghanistan. The intelligence gathered through their unit surveillance had contributed to operations that had saved dozens of American lives and prevented significant strategic victories by hostile forces. Despite the positive results achieved by Steel Ghost's operation, Marcus remained troubled by the methods employed and the disregard for normal military oversight and legal procedures. The effectiveness of the results did not eliminate his concerns about accountability and the potential for abuse of power by operations that existed outside normal military command structures. Following their debriefings, Marcus and his unit members were offered new assignments that would utilize their skills while ensuring they remained under appropriate security oversight. Marcus accepted assignment to a communications unit at a stateside military base, understanding that his experience with Steel Ghost had forever altered his military career trajectory. Years later, as Marcus reflected on his experience with Steel Ghost's operation, he remained conflicted about the moral implications of what he had witnessed and participated in. The operation had achieved important objectives and prevented attacks against American personnel, but it had done so using methods that challenged fundamental principles of military accountability and democratic oversight. The voice that had emerged from his radio equipment had opened his eyes to a world of military operations that existed in the shadows of official activity, a world where effectiveness sometimes required abandoning the principles and procedures that were supposed to govern military conduct. His decision to prioritize the lives of fellow soldiers over operational security had ultimately been vindicated, but it had also ended his involvement in operations where such moral choices might be necessary. Marcus never again encountered Steel Ghost or learned the true identity of the individual behind that authoritative voice. The classified nature of the operation ensured that the full scope of its activities and achievements remained hidden from public scrutiny and official military records. Yet Marcus knew that somewhere in the shadows of military operations, voices like Steel Ghost continued to coordinate activities that protected American interests using methods that few were meant to know existed. The experience had taught Marcus that the reality of military service was more complex and morally ambiguous than he had understood when he first enlisted. Sometimes protecting American lives required participating in operations that challenged comfortable assumptions about military honor and democratic accountability. The voice of Steel Ghost had revealed that the true cost of security sometimes included the sacrifice of transparency and the acceptance of methods that existed in the moral gray areas between duty and compromise. In the end, Marcus concluded that his encounter with Steel Ghost had made him both a better soldier and a more thoughtful citizen, someone who understood that the safety and security he had taken for granted were maintained by people making difficult decisions in circumstances where perfect solutions did not exist, and where the line between heroism and moral compromise was often thinner than anyone wanted to admit.